All right, let's run it back, shall we? What is up, everybody? Welcome back for the first time in a long time to the Best Self Blueprint. For those of you who don't know, the mission of this podcast is to help people move the dial towards becoming the best version of themselves, whatever that means to you. So right now, I'm going to do that through a solo episode, more like a bring it back, get back into the groove. But typically, it'll be bringing on a variety of guests that, in my opinion, excel either in an area of life, like an external health, fitness, relationships, career, or maybe they're just someone who's inspirational from a character trait. Super kind, super generous, very intuitive. People that I find interesting that I just want to sit down, get to know better, and see if I can't emulate that inspirational piece of them in what I do and get them to relay it in a way that will help you do the same. But for today, I'm just going to roll through a whole laundry list of what's been going on with Best Self, with me, Trevor. For those of you who don't know who I am, Trevor Cossack, host. I'm just going to roll through why the break, what's been going on, what can you expect from the podcast moving forward, what can you expect from Best Self moving forward, and what can you expect from me moving forward. So let us get into it, shall we? So welcome back for those of you who are returning listeners. Welcome here for people who have not tuned in before. This first part is going to be a little more dry, and then I'll kind of get into my more philosophical, deep diving pieces of the puzzle in this podcast. But a couple updates real quick for you. So for Best Self in particular, back to the podcast. This is something, if you do listen to every episode, a while back I did make one very sporadically, just mostly to let everyone know that I would be taking a break. Originally, the plan was to do the Sparks 100 event. I'll get into the details of that down the road of this episode. But do that event and then almost immediately jump into another training camp to get ready for another charity event and athletic feat. After doing the Sparks 100, I just felt twinges of fulfillment, completeness, and I really just didn't feel the need, the want, the anything towards doing that second part of the project. So Sparks 100 is where it ended. So that was originally where I was going to start back up, but just with the craziness of my schedule after that, I decided let's kick back, let's have some fun, let's enjoy what's coming up, which I'll get into. You know what? No, I'll just get into it right now. So after the Sparks 100 event, these were my weekends. Had a wedding to go to, bachelor party, Father's Day weekend, groomsmen in a wedding, usher in a wedding, groomsmen in a wedding, and that was just this past weekend. Aside from that, we had the 4th of July, we had friends' birthdays, we had other things going on. So really in my head, it was just doing my best to enjoy being in a liminal state. So liminal kind of being that like weird limbo in between the end of a chapter, beginning of a chapter. And I feel really good about it, but if you can either hear from my voice is a little nasally or maybe I'll be coughing a little bit, that much wedding season type activities and bachelor party type activities has very much caught up with me. It's caught up with my health a little bit to where my body just feels very tired, very fatigued. But it's time to get back into it. So that includes this podcast. So back to the podcast. A book, a Best Self book is going to be coming out either end of 2024 or beginning of 2025. There are a lot of hoops to jump through. There's a lot for me to figure out. The book, I've been slowly hinting at the idea for myself if I wanted to write a book, but now I know the concept, I know the framework, and I'm actively writing the book as, well, not literally as we speak, I'm doing this, but currently in my life, I am writing the book. So to give myself some cushion, to make sure that I can get some more experiences that I know are coming down the line in the book, end of 2024, beginning of 2025, figuring out how it works to even get a book published, what it looks like to market it and do the whole promotion campaign and do all the stuff. That's just something I know is going to take time. And so end of 2024, beginning of 2025, There will be a book coming out, and I will fill you in as that gets closer, but obviously we've got some time between that. Private coaching for Best Self is back to being available. There was a period of time where I just straight up was not taking clients. That's because I was completely restructuring what I do, what Best Self does, what it's about, who we help, how we help, all that stuff. But private coaching is available. So the best way to explain what I do for private coaching for people is Best Self coaching. It is not necessarily life coaching. I get how those two can be entangled, but it is almost a subsector niche group within the spectrum of life coaching. What I help someone do is identify who they are. So the best way to refer to this is imagine climbing a mountain. I help you identify where is your base camp? Where are you at right now, being who are you right now? What's the summit? Meaning what is your ideal optimal existence and life within this human experience? And then what's the trail to get there? I'm not the type of person who's necessarily going to hold your hand and tell you everything's going to be okay. It's very much high performance focused, systems focused, character traits focused, limiting beliefs focused. We go in a deep dive to figure out, no bullshit, what will it take to get you from who you are right now to both internally and externally who you want to be, the life you want to live, the things you want to do, the people you want to be around, the places you want to go. Best Self coaching. Private coaching available, limited spots. I'm not even going to pitch you on it. If you are interested, hit me up. Otherwise, let's not worry about that right now. Plenty more to go over. Many, many more workshops are coming down the pipeline. I have an abundance of ideas. I have an abundance of scripts that I've written, little talks that I've done, material that I can go through. And so the goal is starting in August, every month to have something on the calendar for Best Self. Now, that may not always be a paid interactive workshop. That might be just inviting people out to go hang out at a park. It might be putting together a charity event. It might be meet and greets. It might be a whole bunch of different things. But once a month, doing some type of Best Self group activity. And the whole point of that is because there are so many people out there who do want to get immersed in the optimal human experience. Obviously, that is subjective to the individual, but I think there are certain frameworks, there are certain personality types that are compelled to go in on that pursuit. And so to be able to get around those people is a catalyst for doing that in your own life. So many, many more workshops, events, meetups coming down the line starting in August. So be ready for that. And then what I am probably most excited about is upcoming, I'm going to be touring a couple different locations to potentially host extended retreats. Now, a couple things about this. The first one, this is a very immersive event. So this would likely start out as an overnight, meaning we would have guests show up Friday afternoon, evening, stay through the night at said retreat location, and then do a full day immersive workshop or workshop series at this retreat. So, because of the fact that this isn't your standard 90-minute, 2-hour workshop, this is going to be a full, likely a 24-hour thing. This will be a higher price ticket. This will be, something that you're going to have to invest more in. But the reason for that is because when you're able to get around people and stay around people and challenge ideas of these people and work together and figure out how you can build, when we give you these frameworks, when we give you these systems, when we put these thoughts in front of you and basically tell you go run, have fun, explore, question, challenge, that is where the juice is worth the squeeze with this stuff. So I'm super excited about that. I'm just going to leave it at the concept for now. There are things in the works, but we don't have dates finalized. And until we have that, that's as much as I'm going to say. But podcast is coming back. Book is going to be coming out in a year to 2 years. Private coaching is back on the table, more workshops, meetups, stuff like that, and extended retreats coming probably before the end of the year. Now maybe you see why I took a little break to restructure. So a lot of stuff happening with Best Self. As far as merchandise goes, because I've had a few people ask about where they can get a shirt or how they can support through stuff like this. Told you. How they can support. The merch stuff, I think I'm going to switch up. Instead of just always having stuff like this for sale, I think what I want to do is limited time drops. So based on what's going on in the world of Best Self, the events that we're putting on, the things that we're doing, the charities that we're working with, I want to do limited drops. I think that would be much more fun. It kind of shows the chronological progression of what Best Self is, what it's working on, what it's standing for, and just it would be a fun little way to do that. So there's that. Anyways, on to the next thing, BSW. For those of you who don't know or remember, Best Self is my company, but I also have another co-founded business in which me and the other guy are both speakers, coaches, health experts, and it's BSW, Best Self Warrior. I have a podcast, The Best Self Blueprint. He has a podcast, Way of the Warrior. Shout out that podcast. Go check it out. But we kind of combine forces to every once in a while link up and do gigs. So with that, although that's kind of taken a back seat temporarily, with that we also do corporate and organization workshops and events and things like that. So you've got all that stuff with Best Self, BSW. I just booked a new sales job. So with that sales job, 10 days out of each month, I'm based out of Wisconsin. I'm going to be traveling out of state to go do 10 days of really immersive direct-to-consumer sales, working with a really high-paced team that is very, very focused on winning and getting the reps in and hustling. And that's something that I know I've been missing recently, is that like grind culture. And that's something I feel like almost gross saying that, because that's not necessarily something I believe in. I believe in harmony. I believe in a life that allows you to not just work until you're blue in the face and then burn out. But I've been missing that competitive spirit in a lot of things that I've been doing. And so finding a new channel that allows me to work on my sales skills, travel to new places with new people, to be around that culture, it's something that I just know I need. My intuition has guided me to a lot of amazing things. That's next on that list. But Best Self, BSW, new sales job. And then, like I said, just there was a lot of weddings and social events and the Sparks 100 and all of that stuff. So what now? What's happening now? With the podcast, I'd like to do more solo episodes. I think this will be a good place for me to almost sandbox some of my speaking concepts. Just kind of deliver them raw, look back and see what tracks, what people enjoyed, what people commented about, all of that stuff. But there are a lot of guests in my time off. I've met some truly inspiring people. My hope is that I can get these people on for episodes because, I mean, these are people that, I don't know if you've ever met people and you get like goosebumps just from hearing their story. But I've been so lucky to meet so many of these people that just being around them is like drinking an energy drink. I'm so amped up by who they are and the life that they're living and the stories that they have, the ideas that they have, the philosophies that they have, the way they live, the way they are. And to be able to put these people in front of you and just dissect so you can feel that feeling that I got when I was chatting with them. I'm so excited. So there are a lot of very, very cool guests. I already have a couple lined up, and I'm going to be traveling more just because although Zoom is great, I prefer to do in person. Just so I can meet that person. I can chat with them a little bit more beforehand, get to know them. So I'll be traveling for a couple. I've got one ready in Chicago. I've got one ready out in Boston right now. So some cool stuff for guests. Some cool stuff coming for solo episodes. There's going to be a lot more depth to these. But other than that, the other thing I wanted to open up is I've done 80 some episodes now. I want all of you, whoever's listening, the comment box is amazing. Being able to go on my social media and reach out to me is amazing in the fact that if there's something that you want to hear about, whether it's me talking about it on a solo episode, me bringing on a guest, an area of life that maybe you notice I miss or I don't really go deep on, or maybe there's a framework that you'd like me to go over, or anything that you want me to cover. I'm not guaranteeing I'm going to cover it, but I will always take suggestions. So if there's stuff that you want to hear about on this podcast, hit me up. Throw it in the comments. Shoot me a message. If there's somebody in your orbit that you think would be a really cool person for me to sit down with, send me their info. If there's a topic you really want me to cover, send it my way. I'm always happy to expand on what we're doing here. This is not a strict thing. It's anything that I believe might help you, whether it's educationally, inspirationally, or just with entertainment, help you become a better version of who you are and step into your power as a human being in this crazy experience we call life. So that's what's happening with the podcast. But I wanted to take some time and just get into, with a little more depth, the things that I've been going through. I mean, the ups, the downs, the craziness that has been this liminal state I was talking about. And it really all started with the Sparks 100. So for those of you who don't know what that was, the Sparks 100 was my victory lap as an ultra athlete. So it was supposed to be part one of a two-part thing. Turned out to be the whole thing. But it was three combined pieces of what I wanted to do. The first one, run 100 miles. That was something it scared the shit out of me, quite frankly. It was one of those things that I was simultaneously so inspired. Every time I saw someone do it, I just couldn't even wrap my head around that. Even after doing a 24-hour race, still couldn't wrap my head around 100. So I was simultaneously inspired by it, but so scared of it because I know how I felt at the end of 24 hours. But so first part, running 100 miles. The second part, making it a community event. So making it something that people could come out and join in and get active, get outside, get some fresh air, push themselves, do something that, how do I phrase this? One of my favorite things in life is not even being cocky about it, but doing something myself that inspires me. And to open up the floor and give people a container in which they could do that for themselves was something I've wanted to do for a while. And this was that. So running 100 miles, making a community event, and doing a charity event. So how the Sparks 100 was set up, it was a 5K loop at a local park. The whole time, my goal was just keep going and get 100 miles. There were 5 sign-up times, and people could sign up for one or multiple. They could go for all of them. But people could sign up, and they could run or walk any distance they wanted. We had a little 1-mile loop, so you could do anything per mile up to as much as you wanted. The only caveat was you had to donate a minimum of $25 to the Jackson Sparks Foundation. Well, this experience was one of the coolest experiences of my entire life. It was so fulfilling, so humbling, so beautiful. And it all started just with me being curious about how far could I push this ultra endurance thing. Now, I'm sure after doing the 100, I'm sure I could go further and do more and blow it even more out of proportion. But I felt such peace after this event. I was able to do the 100. It took me well over a day. It took me about a day and a half, which there are going to be plenty of people who say, that's super slow, and it is. Relatively, these people who are cranking out 100 milers are doing it pretty fast. But never before in any workout, in any race, in any challenge, did I genuinely feel the feeling of being exhausted. Now, when I say exhausted, I mean 100% depleted to the point where, like, thinking about getting up off a chair made me emotional. I experienced that at, like, mile 60. And this might be all over the place because I haven't even journaled about this. I've been procrastinating on it. But all right, let's get into the whole thing. So it started at 8 a.m. Well, I was part of the setup crew because this was such a little ragtag crew. I loved it. It was fantastic. It felt like just such a cool little like backyard project. But it was me. Shout out to Tony, my friend who was the reason this event went off without a hitch. Tony Medaglia, phenomenal human being. People saw that who came out. Me, Tony, my parents, so dad, mom, stepmom, and then a couple other people maybe who were participating in the first wave. The emergency medical staff was there. So just kind of a little ragtag crew setting everything up, getting everything ready to rock. And then the local news came to do a segment on it. Well, I was doing the segment about 20 minutes before this whole thing kicked off. So by the time that the news segment wrapped up and everything was set up and ready to go, I didn't even really have time to process what was about to happen because I had about, I think, 7 minutes to warm up and get ready to go, which 7 minutes is just straight up not enough time. But so I was kind of thrust into it. But at the start, it was just so light and so fun, and I felt like a kid playing on the playground with friends. We had a nice small group at the 8 a.m., and it was just kids hanging out, eating snacks, and running in the park for a good cause. That's what it felt like. And it continued to feel like that really all the way through the first day. So from 8 a.m. to like through into the night, it just felt so fun. It felt so light. It felt so free. And then the night came. And anyone who's done an overnight ultra, you know the night is the hardest part. You don't have that, like, I don't know if it's your circadian rhythm or if it's energy from the sun or what, or just the fact that you're freaking tired. But the night is so difficult because you're in the dark, in your own little bubble that is confined to your headlamp's light length. Whatever that would be. But this night in particular, it started raining. Now, my recollection of events could be very poor. But it started raining, I think, around 10 p.m. Every hour, it started raining harder and getting colder. And around 1 a.m., I just felt off. And so a whole huge group of my friends, this was as difficult as this was for me personally. This was so beautiful because I had such a great group of my friends and friends from different parts of my life. I had friends from back in high school. I had friends that I race with. I had friends that I've met along this journey of just being me. And to have a group of I think there were 10 of us just going for a stroll through the rain. They were blasting music. They were keeping me talking, keeping me active. And as awful as I felt, being able to look around and just see how many people love and support and care for me, that was priceless. And as short-lived as it was, I am eternally grateful for that little snapshot of my reality. So we get to the end of that lap, and I'm truly in the state of I need to just go in the tent and lay there. If I fall asleep, I fall asleep. If I don't, I don't. But I'm soaking wet. I'm miserable. I have a giant blister on my foot. I mean, I won't get into it too much because it's a little gross, but the size of, let's say again, thumb is kind of like the big toe. This blister was the entire side of my big toe and it went out about a centimeter and a half. And that sucker was alive. So all that to say, I needed to just check out. I needed to like mentally unplug for like 20 minutes. So he set the timer for, I believe, 22 minutes. I crawl in there, and as soon as I lay down, I realized for the first time how much pain I'm actually in. My hips hurt, my knees hurt, my feet hurt, my legs are aching, my back is tight, all of this stuff. And I can feel my breathing is off. Like, I'm just jacked. Again, this was, I believe, mile 60 or like mile 62, 50, either 59 or 62. And I'm jacked up in every way, mentally, emotionally, physically. But I was holding on because one of my crew mates, or one of the people who was hanging out in our like athlete tent that we had set up, someone said, hey, I just looked at the radar. By the time you get out of your tent, it'll be done raining. You can put on some dry clothes and you'll be good to go. So I'm just holding on to that thought of, hey, all I need is this 20 minutes to recalibrate, and then I'll put on some dry clothes. I'll go out. I'll eat, a couple bites, anything I can keep down. And then I'll go out for a nice dry lap, and that'll be like starting a new chapter. Well, I get out of the tent. It's even colder, and it's raining way harder. And that was when I felt the true meaning of just depleted, exhausted, broken, truly, truly broken. And in the moment, so I got out, I look around, and I just see that it's miserable outside. And I sit down, and I'm about to start trying to eat some peanut M&Ms because for some reason those stay in my stomach. And my mom looks at me, and she says, hey, we looked at the radar. It's going to be a couple of hours before it stops raining. And there's a picture of me. Someone took a picture of me in that moment, and I'm so glad they did, because that moment was when I broke. That feeling of, I can't even picture getting up out of this chair. Not even, I can't picture going back out for another lap. I don't know how I'm going to convince myself to get up. I don't have it in me to get up. I'm broken. I'm done. And that was really the only like the instinctual thought that went through my head was that. It was, I can't even compute it. It doesn't even register. So I sat there for a couple minutes. I got down just a couple peanut M&Ms, maybe a couple chips. I don't remember. I ate just a couple bites of food. And I was just looking around at everybody there. And some people were looking at me with sympathy. Some people almost didn't even want to look at me because I'm sure I looked pissed and sad and scared and broken and like a little kid. Yeah, that's just, like the little child Trevor came out, and yeah, I was just so done. But in looking around at everybody, I just knew that like all of the sacrifice my friends made, my coaches made, my crew members made, my parents made, all the people who came out, I promised the Sparks family that I would do this. I promised my clients that I would do this. And how many people will I, whether or not this is even true, how many people will I let down if I quit? And so it was really one thing at a time. So it was, hey, stand up. So I stood up. Hey, put a shoe on. Put a shoe on. Put the other shoe on. Put the other shoe on. It was so one thing at a time. And then went back out. And that, to me, mile 60 that's where the experience truly started, because it was at that point that it was like I had to, I mean, like my feet were so messed up. The medical team, like every couple of laps, they had to like start taping up stuff, and like it just got brutal. But around the end of it, we found out that we had to be out of the park at a certain time, and it didn't look like I was going to be done at that time. And I just remember so Tony was the crew chief. There was another guy on the crew named Colin Stolpa. Shout out to Colin. I love you. You're amazing. I remember him telling me multiple times throughout this, and he was a little early on the trigger the first couple times, but we chatted about it. There were a couple times where he was like, hey, it's time to lean in, like all the demons, anyone who's doubted you, anyone who's said things down on you, any experience that's caused you pain, lean in. And this was the moment where I was like, it's time. So I had one pair of shoes that I was saving for the end. They had a little extra cushion, a little extra spring, and I knew like I wanted to save those for the end so I could just turn on the jets. I did that, and Colin was with me every step of the way. And I didn't even notice, because we ended up just doing the 1 mile lap so that it felt like I was going faster and I could use the momentum. And I remember it felt like just me and Colin. We were just so locked in and so ready, and we were flying. Like it felt like almost like fight or flight, like I was running away from something. I wasn't running towards something. I was running away from, like, I wanted to just get out of this thing. Because there were multiple points where it just felt like this is my life now. I'm eternally going to be running. It's never going to end. But when I got towards the end, like, apparently there were more and more people who were coming back. Friends, coworkers, family, clients. There was, I don't know, 20-some people just waiting at the finish line for me. It was, like, the coolest freaking thing. But I come down, and we have a tradition that I rip a tequila shot. Me and Tony, after every big race challenge thing, we take tequila shot. So I come around the corner, and Tony's waiting there for me with a custom belt buckle, a custom one-of-one belt buckle. Belt buckle is something you get when you do an ultra. So a custom one-of-one belt buckle and a tequila shot. And everyone around is just there to watch. And just, even now, it's been 2 months, literally almost to the day, 2 months since I've done this. And words, I have a hard time putting words to the experience of what it felt like to accomplish something like this. Really, the only way I can explain it is in the last 6 years, I've done, I don't even know how many races, challenges, competitions, all that stuff. And after every one, I almost immediately felt the urge to put something else on the calendar. Like, all right, that's the new benchmark. This is what's next. I want it on the calendar at this point. It's almost like a boxer or an MMA fighter. Like, they do a fight and they're like, all right, now that this is done, I'm going to rest up a little bit, but this is what I want to fight next. The moment I got done with this, I had never been more sure in my life that I had done what I wanted to do in the ultra space. It was the weirdest, most unexpected sense of calm and completeness. Just to know, like, the thing in me that kept pushing me was always that, like, I had something to prove. And I always, like, at first I thought it was to other people. Like, hey, I'm tough. Hey, I'm badass. Hey, since I'm a personal trainer, I'm athletic. I can push myself. I'm top tier. And it was during this run that it was like, wow, no, it's always just been me. It was me who didn't believe that stuff. It was me who always needed more. It was my ego. It was maybe not my pride. It was my ego in the sense that, well, twofold. One, it never quenched the thirst. But two, I never handled the causal root of like, what was it that I was chasing? And I think what I was chasing was what I experienced at mile 60. When I'm truly broken, as a person, as a man, as a human, as an athlete, as a coach, when I'm broken, how do I respond? Because when things are good, it's so easy to say, oh, I have patience. Oh, I'm generous. Oh, I'm happy. I'm positive. I'm disciplined. I'm ambitious. Fill in the blank. When things are good, it's easy to say that. But when you're broken, when physically you're beaten down, emotionally you're wrecked, mentally you're fried, when you're in that state, I think that reveals the most hidden part of you. At least that's my belief. I'm not going to say that's like just fact based off like psychological research or anything, but yep, there it is. But my belief is that when you're broken, you see who a person is. And I'm very happy with who I was in that moment and who I was for the duration of that experience. So, that's the Sparks 100. My advice, because that kind of showed you my insights and my processing through the event. And there's so much more, but there's a lot more I still want to get into, and I'm not willing to just sit here for 2 hours and chat on a solo pod. But my advice, truly, I'll say two things. The first piece of advice, don't be willing to give up until you've truly exhausted all options. So what I mean by that, like this new job, for example, genuinely, no BS. I said, I need to practice sales. I want to be around a competitive community. I want to travel. And I don't want to have to give up anything that I'm doing. Okay, those are the parameters. Now, what is something? It could be a job. It could be an internship. It could be being an ambassador for a company. It could be maybe me starting up yet another one of my own things. But what's something that will allow me to do this? And I kept looking until I found this job where I've talked with many of the people in this company. I DM'd all of because I went on the company's social and they post top performers. So I sent a message to the top performers just saying, hey, any advice, blah, 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 blah. And I kind of looked into the people. And these people are high performers through and through. But they're people who don't just perform high in sales. They are just articulate people. They're put together. They know what they want and they go after it. All of that stuff. Anyways, all of that to loop back around and say, figure out what you want and then figure out how to get it. So like for the Sparks 100, I wanted to do a 100-miler. I wanted to do it on my terms with my event. I wanted to do a charity event where I raised the most I've ever raised for a charity in one event. Managed to raise $4,000, which was pretty freaking cool. Again, I know relatively there are things that are way beyond that, but in me versus me, that's the most I've ever raised in an event. So raised the most I've ever raised and had the most people come out for like an athletic event like this. We had, I believe, around 50 people participate. So again, figure out what you want and don't stop. Don't stop when it gets tough. Don't stop when you get frustrated. Don't stop when you have doubt. Keep going until you're there. So that's the first thing. Sparks 100 from the organizer perspective. Don't settle. Man, this life is such a beautiful thing if you're willing to push through the muck. If you're willing to push through that, I call it the second period. So in hockey, 3 periods, right? First, second, third. The first period is exciting because it's like it's a new game, it's a new opponent. There's that I don't even want to call it honeymoon phase, but there's that like fresh start feel in the first period. In the third period, you see how things are shaking out, and if it's a close game, you're pushing down because you only have so much time left on the clock. But in the second period, there's usually a little bit of a lull. And now I'm not talking about hockey. Now I'm talking about a pursuit of an extraordinary thing. In the first period of the pursuit, it's new, it's fresh, it's the honeymoon phase, it's exciting. In the third period, we'll see if we can do that. In the third period, now you've got like, oh, it's almost here, we need to push. But the second period is the muck. That's where a lot of the doubt, a lot of the what if I can't, a lot of the big obstacles pop up and test how bad you want it. Get through the second period. Dominate the second period. So that's the first thing. Sorry, again, my body's just not handling the many social activities. But anyways, that's the first thing. Don't settle. Push for what you want. And the second thing, stack life resume experiences. So the Sparks 100, again, this was something like, and do it for you. Don't do it for anyone else. Don't do it to impress someone. Don't do it for, just do it for you. Do it to prove to you who you can be in this life. So that's my two pieces of advice. Don't settle. Pick an extraordinary avenue to pursue in life, and don't settle and don't stop. And two, do it for you. Like, be selfish. Selfishness has such a negative connotation, but again, the oxygen mask analogy is the perfect thing. If a plane is having, problems, shall we say, and the oxygen masks come down, who do they say to put the oxygen mask on first? Yourself. Because when you're filled up, you're most well equipped to fill up many other people and help many other people. But if you're not getting the energy you need to be the best you, the energy that you're pouring from yourself to others is not as good. It's not as radiant. It's not as impactful. So go do you, man. All right. Weddings and bachelor parties, because there have been a lot of those, right? As someone I've been single for a long time, we'll just preface it with that. I've been single a long time. To witness, I've been to 4 weddings in the last 2 months, 3 in the last 3 weeks, and I was a groomsman in 2 of them and an usher in 1 of them, and then the other one was a family member, a cousin. I don't know if there's anything more beautiful in this life than seeing 2 people that deeply and intimately, truly in love with each other. Like, in love. Yeah. And to be able to just be a supporter of it, to be there to enhance the energy around the celebration of that kind of love has been one amazing set of experiences for me. And then to be able to do the bachelor parties, and I mean, we were out in Moab, Utah for some, and we were in the Wisconsin Dells for some, and we were doing, for one of the weekends, we were out like gambling and doing casinos, and that's not my style at all, but it was enjoyable just to see my friends in their element of joy and presence and carefree fun. And just that's so opposing of the energy I've been in most of the time. Most of the time, I'm working at the gym, or I'm thinking about business, or I'm reading a book on self-help, or I'm listening to podcasts on self-help, or I'm thinking about this stuff, or I'm working out, or I'm meditating. And it is very, not even regimented, but very disciplined in the sense that, like, I know full well that this life is finite, and I want to be optimized in the timeline that I'm gifted. But to be reminded that optimal doesn't always mean super efficient. Like, it doesn't have to be line them up, knock them down, onto the next thing. Sometimes, and I would probably argue at this point most of the time, it's as much about being present and peaceful and joyful and content with where you're at, what you're doing, who you're doing it with, than the rate at which you're executing. I mean, still, yeah, drive hard, be successful, enjoy the pursuit. But that last part, enjoy the pursuit. And to be able to be in this liminal state, to really kind of be in limbo for 2 months and like know that I'm not doing another fitness thing anytime soon. Like, I'm still working out and training and doing all that, but there's no event on the calendar. So that's the first time in 6 years that I don't have any race I'm looking forward to or challenge or thing. Liminal state. I was restructuring Best Self. So I wasn't sure, like I wasn't trying to book workshops. I wasn't trying to book clients. I wasn't trying to do podcast. I wasn't trying to really do anything. Liminal state. And what a joy it's been. It really gave me the space that I needed to be 100% sure in who I am and who I want to evolve into in this next chapter. And through what means do I want to do that? Meaning, what framework with the business? What framework with each part of the business? What framework with the new job? What framework with my social life? What framework with my life? All of this stuff. So to go from a crazy training camp with the Sparks 100 where like I had a stress fracture in my foot 2 months out, which takes 6 to 8 weeks to heal, or 4 to 6 weeks to heal, races in 8 weeks. So for a running race, I couldn't train by running. I had an uncle pass away a couple weeks before the race. So like to be in such a grind, disciplined state and then get done and just go straight into like happy fun time and celebratory everything. It's been wild, but it's been fun. So let's see. Being in a liminal state. This is the last thing I'll say because I'm almost running up on an hour here. I'm over 45 minutes. I am the type of person who expects to be good. What I mean by that, I expect that I can show up and execute at a high level in pretty much everything that I do. That's kind of the standard I have set for myself. I'm the person who likes to be talented in the things that I do. And I do work hard to be talented in the things that I do. In addition to that, I'm someone who expects to be happy. I expect to be content. I expect to be at peace. I expect the best that life has to offer in a lot of ways. And recently, there's been periods and there's been things going on in which I've needed to become okay with not always being great. Whether that be like not having a race on the calendar. I looked like a lost puppy at the gym trying to figure out what to do for workouts for the first couple weeks because I realized I could do whatever I wanted. And so I was just kind of like moving around aimlessly for a lot of my workouts, and they weren't good workouts, and I kind of let my body go. I wasn't eating well. I went into like the celebratory, like have some drinks, go and get some, junk food, and who cares about consistent sleep? We're having fun and partying. And there is such a domino effect with that, where I wasn't eating right, I wasn't sleeping consistently, I wasn't taking care of myself. And my friend Kat, who has been on here many, many times, she's one of those people who just defies logic. She's connected to spirit or intuition at a level that I truly have never seen before. And 2 different times she comes up to me. The first one, she comes up, and mind you, I wasn't talking to anyone about this stuff. So no one really knew, which means she didn't really know. But she comes up and she says, hey, I was meditating or doing some type of mindful practice the other day, and I had a vision that you weren't meditating. Are you meditating? Like, should you need to get back to meditating? Now, I'm usually so on top of meditating. That's what, like, how most people, and I brush my teeth, but how most people brush their teeth every day, that's the level at which I would meditate. And for some reason, I got sidetracked and not cared about it for like over a month. And she called me on that. And then some while later, she came up and said, hey, I had like a vision that you were just like stuffing food in your face. Have you not been eating well? And that day, I had been eating some pizza and was thinking to myself, I need to kind of get my shit together again. Quick side note on that. Have friends who can call you out on your crap. Because if you just have yes men or people, not even yes men, but if you have people who don't care about you enough to tell you when you need to shape the F up, it's going to be so much more difficult to grow at the rate that is available when you have friends who are willing to challenge you to who you aspire to be. So, shout out to Kat. But being stuck in a state as someone who, again, and I think as a coach too, there's a certain standard and certain expectation that I put on myself where it's like, if I can coach people to be aligned, fulfilled, successful, joyful, peaceful, connected, loved, significant, extraordinary, living a great life, doing extraordinary things, why can I not do that? And this liminal state that I'm in has been a masterclass in surrendering to the humanity within myself and understanding that, yes, I am at a very high level as a coach of showing people what it takes, what frameworks, what philosophies, what research, what people, what books, what podcasts, what materials, what systems, what little hacks, what habits, all of that stuff. I am at a very high level to be able to coach people through what it takes to do that. But I think over time, I had developed this false sense of impenetrability in myself when it comes to the human experience. And so now that I've had time to sit with being kind of knocked down, having many things happen that just show me, hey, I can feel sad and not need to get out of it right away, not need to feel bad or feel wrong or feel like I need to escape back to the real me, which is good, happy, positive, enthusiastic. But like, yeah, part of me is to be sad because I was gifted with the ability of sadness. Part of me is to feel unmotivated or to feel lazy because I'm blessed with, a comfy bed and a warm home and food in the fridge and friends to share memories with. And I'm so grateful that I've had this space between the Sparks 100 and this new job, this new endeavor, where I leave for Boston in 4 days to go on this brand new experience. And that's really where I want to wrap this up. For those of you who are still listening, by the way, you're saints. I know I've been going on for a while, but I want to leave you with just a reminder that, like, the human experience is all of it. It's okay to be sad. It's okay to be down. It's okay to have doubt. It's okay to not be sure. It's okay to be in a liminal state. It's okay to be all that is you. And the more willing you are to sit in where you're at with what's going on and not try to wiggle out or escape, but just sit with it. Just be with it. Hold space for the you that is present and what you are experiencing. The lessons are much more powerful. That's what I'm learning, at least in my experience. And it's not an excuse to stay there longer than you need to. It's not an excuse to play the victim. It's not an excuse to forego the responsibilities that you've, placed in your life. But do sit with it. Do allow yourself the full spectrum of the human experience. Because it has served me so beautifully in these past 2 months. I'm so excited to be sitting down with these next guests. Some of my friends from the pageant organization that I've been so lucky to meet and get to know. Some of the most truly amazing people. Obviously beautiful on the outside, but so beautiful on the inside. Just with who they are, the size of their hearts and the level of their generosity and just the true beauty of what makes them perfect for a pageant organization. I'm excited to sit down with at least one, hopefully multiple of them. I've got some people from this new sales team that truly are next level driven that I'm excited to sit down and chat with. Just a lot of really cool people that I'm super excited for you to be exposed to and get to sit down and listen to, and who knows, maybe one day even meet through these Best Self meetups. But I'm going to leave it at that because it has been about an hour and it's time for me to get the heck out of here. So thank you everybody for tuning in. Again, couple last little things. Like, comment. If you aren't subscribed, subscribe. Stay tuned because there will be so many more of these coming down the pipeline. I haven't quite figured out a cadence yet, but we're going to get back into a rhythm here. So do all the YouTube stuff. And then, again, let me know, are there people that you think we should have on that are actually reasonable? Because I've had people say, like, Dwayne Johnson or Zac Efron or, Messi. Yeah, that'd be phenomenal, but I don't quite have that reach yet. So let's start by subscribing, sharing this with people. Let's build the audience. The bigger the audience, the bigger the guests. But let me know, people, topics, frameworks, anything you want me to chat about, let me know. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. I appreciate it. It's so cool to be back doing this. I thought it was going to be a train wreck, but it actually went smoother than I thought. Or maybe it's a train wreck and I'm just naive. But thank you for tuning in. I will catch you next time. Peace!